A while back there was an advertisement on television for a Lifeline product. One of those buttons on necklaces that are often worn by elderly people who live alone, so that if they are in distress, they can call someone even if they are unable to reach a telephone. In the ad, you may remember this woman is on the floor, and she says, "Help, I've fallen and I can't get up." Now, for some reason, that ad, and more particularly that phrase, has been borrowed by comedians and spoofers and modified in various ways. One particular modification that I have heard and remembered, I'm not sure who originated it, but I do know my father-in-law, who's been gone now 20 years, used to use it against my mother-in-law. But the modification of that phrase goes something like this: "Help, I'm talking and I can't shut up." Ever felt that way? Maybe about someone you know and love, or maybe about yourself. Ever stuck your foot in your mouth, and in an attempt to remove it, you ended up jamming it down your windpipe until you choked on your own words? There is probably not one of us here that at some point in time have not said words that as soon as they came out of our mouths, we wish we could pull them back in. There is probably not one of us here who, in the heat of anger, or caught up in what I call the yank-yank gossip across the desk at the office, or across the street of the neighborhood, or across the aisle of the church, have not said words we wish later we would not have spoken. James tackles the problem, among others, in his letter read for us by Jim this morning. James and Jim. Yeah.
Hey, good.
What do we know about James? As we said last week, if you were here, the Apostle James is the half-brother of Jesus. Very little is said in the Gospels about Jesus' relationships with his siblings, or really with any of his family for that matter. The one incident involving Jesus and his family that is recorded in great detail in the Gospel is the one when his family tries to get Jesus to leave the ministry and come home. James was there that day, knocking on the door, saying, Jesus, we're worried about you. Your mother is scared for you. You're not making sense to us. Jesus, come on home. Indeed, James was among the immediate family that at the time thought Jesus had become unbalanced. Read Mark 3, verse 21. Jesus would not go with them. "Who are my mother and brothers?" he said. "But the one who does the will of my Father, who is in heaven." What could they do but leave without him? No doubt the conversation among the family in the caravan on the way home might have included words about Jesus not quickly forgotten. "Mom, he's gone crazy. We've got to do something. We've got to find him help." Or maybe it was something like, "Well, I'm done with him. Let him go off the deep end with that bunch of half-wits he's hanging out with." We don't know what was said, but many of us know about those family conversations that happen when there's panic and fear and concern about one in the family that's gone off in a different direction. But somewhere along the way, James' impression of his brother changes dramatically. Perhaps, as one commentator surmises, it was after the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus that James came to believe that Jesus was indeed the Son of God who had come to save the world. For the letter of James opens as the writer calls himself a servant of God and of the Lord, not my brother, but of the Lord Jesus Christ. Legend tells us that shortly after the destruction of the city of Jerusalem in 70 AD, when many Jews were becoming Christians, that James was commanded to renounce Jesus. And when he refused, James was thrown from the top of the temple and then stoned to death as he lay dying from his injuries. It has been said that James' willingness to die for his faith is one of the most compelling arguments you will hear for the claims of Jesus. We might conjecture that the memory of his own careless words spoken about his half-brother in that incident when they tried to get Jesus to come home, that his memory of those words helped James to write one of the most insightful passages about the tongue in all of literature. The tongue has gotten us into trouble, right? There is no question about that. The tongue has damaged reputations and sometimes sparked not only personal conflict, but worldwide international crises. This is why I think we need to be careful in selecting our leaders. While we may think we want plain talk and frank speech from our leaders, in a nuclear world where we are no more than one sentence away from annihilation, we cannot afford to put someone at the top who cannot control his or her own tongue. Amen. I don't consider the ability to hurl insults a sign of a true leader, if you know what I mean. James challenges us this morning to consider the damage that can be done in the world by words, by our words. The story is told of a man who lived in a Scottish village, a village in Scotland. He passed along a story about another man for whom he did not care. The story he thought to be true when he told it. When the story got around the village, well, it utterly destroyed the man. His family, his job, his integrity were all devastated by the rumor mill. He finally had to leave town, a ruined and defeated man. As you might have guessed, the fellow who passed the story along later discovered that the rumor was false. He had helped to destroy an innocent man with his tongue. He went to his pastor, whom they called Domini, and he said, "Domini, I've destroyed a man with my words." And he told his pastor the whole story. "Please, Domini," he said, "I am so sorry. Can I be forgiven this sin?" The pastor told the man that this was not so simple, and told him to take a bag of feathers and to place one feather in the front yard of every house in the village. Although the fellow thought this to be a strange request for a pastor to make, he really wanted forgiveness, so he followed the instructions to the letter. At last he came back to the pastor and he said, "Domini, I have done all that you have asked. May I now be forgiven?" "Not yet, my son," the pastor replied. "You must first retrace your steps and bring back to me every feather you placed in the village." "But Domini, I could never do that, for the wind has carried all the feathers away." "Yes," said the pastor, "and in like manner your careless words destroy an innocent man." There is power in the tongue and in the words that come forth from it. And I would add, in our times, there is equal power in the click of the mouse. One click, and the word goes forth to millions even. either build up or the words can tear down. The words can either offer life or they can lead to death. For out of the mouth, off of the tongue, or from the stroke of the keyboard, and sent by the click of the mouse can come incredible good or insidious evil, all from the same source. And it can start so small, even so seemingly innocent, as it is said, the spark that starts the raging inferno can also light the home fire that cooks our food and warms our weary bones. James lays power at our feet. There is power in our words. Now, I'm not sure we always grasp how much power there is. I came across this interesting fact about the amazing power of the spoken word. When we hear a word, the physical movement that enters our ear and then the inner ear activates 24,000 little nerves which react through the limbic system and result in the pituitary gland sending hormones into the body. Did you know that? Our whole physical system reacts when we hear words of care or words of condemnation. When we hear words that bring us pain or anxiety, the physical chemical reaction that happens in our bodies takes up to 72 hours to subside, say scientists. No wonder some people live in a perpetual state of agitation and upset. James says, hey folks, your tongue has power. Maybe that is why the writing of James was not wholeheartedly welcomed in the pages of Scripture. James has always had his critics. The 16th century church reformer Martin Luther, and I apologize if there's any Lutherans here, but he called the book of James an epistle of straw, and he tore it from his Bible. James interprets the teachings of Jesus in a way that lays power at our feet. And with that power, though, comes awesome responsibility. For faith, James says, is our choice. Faith is our actions. Faith is life decisions in an everyday real world. Words that heal, words that harm, words that unite, words that divide, words that bring peace, and words that incite war. They are all within our power, says James. Our tongue, our keyboard, our mouse has power, and that power is ours to control. Something to think about. Alan Brehm writes a weekly blog on the lectionary passage, and about these words from James, he says, like many of you, I was raised with the proverb, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. He said, of course, in this day, when we pay people millions of dollars to do exactly the opposite, perhaps we should change that saying to, if you can't say anything nice, well, you're on your way to fame and fortune. Or various alternatives of that saying, he said, actually are commonly true. Like, if you can't say anything nice, come over here and sit next to me. Or, if you can't say anything nice, make sure you have a good lawyer. Or he said one of his personal favorites, if you can't say anything nice, say it in Yiddish. I must confess, he says, that I get pretty jaded about it all, for he says, I'm one who's tired of living in a culture where we are surrounded by words that I think Jesus and James would consider lethal. It seems there's no part of our society that is not infected with the poison of harmful and hateful words, yes, even the church. It seems that misusing the power of words has a long and infamous history. From the writings, the wisdom writings of the Old Testament, the Bible makes a clear and compelling case that words are powerful and that we must respect that power. One of the common themes in the book of Proverbs concerns the contrast between the speech of the wise and that of the unwise. Consider a few of these gems. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Proverbs 10:11. The more talk, the less truth. The wise measure their words. Proverbs 10:19. It is foolish to speak scornfully of others. If you're smart, you will keep quiet. Proverbs 11:12. Those who guard their lips preserve their lives, but those who speak rashly will come to ruin. Proverbs 13:3. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. Proverbs 15:28. And this one I actually saw posted on Facebook yesterday. Anyone can find the dirt in someone. Be the one who finds the gold. Did you get that? Anyone can find the dirt in or on someone. Be the one that finds the gold. Proverbs 11:27. I love that. Maybe we here at South Main could be a church that finds the gold in each other. Now, I know the gold is not always shining on the surface. Sometimes we have to go digging for it, don't we? But it's there. It's there. Could we look for the gold in each other? Could we talk to one another here in this place as if we see gold there? Could we? Here's an even more challenging proposition. Could we talk about ourselves? Could the language we use to describe our own situation convey the notion that there is gold here? Could we? That's a difficult one, isn't it? A few weeks back, Barb Baptista, who comes to church here, brought in this pretty little box that we have sat on a table outside my office door. It was Barb's idea that folks could write encouraging words to the pastor on slips of paper and put them in that box. And some of you have done that, and I thank you so much. But I want to expand those instructions. Do you know what could also very much encourage me as your pastor? It would be to hear you offer kind words, encouraging words, uplifting words about each other, and to each other. When I worked at the United Way of Anderson County, we had a box. It was called an Emmy box. Do you know the Emmy Awards, the awards annually given in the television industry to actors and programs for the best? As staff, we were encouraged to write positive things about our fellow co-workers, to acknowledge when we saw somebody do something that we appreciated or respected. And each week during the staff meeting, Carol Burdett, the director, would read those comments, and the person who received the Emmy got a piece of candy. Small thing, but power. Now, finding kind and encouraging and uplifting ways to use our tongues or our mouths, finding ways to do that takes practice. Like anything in life, it takes practice. And it may come easier to some than others. But we can do it. We have the power